Hi, this is Brad Smith from BeerSmith.com, and I'm going to give you a quick overview of the BeerSmith web editor. It actually complements the world's most popular desktop brewing software, which is used by home and pro brewers worldwide. The web version is built around the BeerSmithRecipes.com website, which already stores over 1.3 million recipes, including beer, mead, cider, and wine recipes. For years now, anybody can start a new recipe or search for recipes just by going to BeerSmithRecipes.com and typing in a few words at the top. And you can search by rating, you can search for all grain, you can organize them however you want. For example, here's the top rated stouts. You can also go in and make private copies of these, store them to your account, for example, and work with those later. So a private copy's been made here. But I'm going to show you the new BeerSmith web recipe editor, so we're going to get into that right now. So I'm logged into my account. I'm using the recipe web editor. If you are a Gold Plus member, you have access to this web editor already. You can go into BeerSmithRecipes.com and just click on the recipe editor button after logging in. There's also a free 30-day trial available. So if I click on my recipe editor, it's actually going to show all my cloud-based recipes, and I should mention this does tie to the desktop version of BeerSmith, which you can also get if you're a Gold Plus member at BeerSmith.com. And anything you put in the cloud folder on your BeerSmith desktop program will also show up here on the web. Anyways, from here, I can do any number of things. I can click on the recipe editor just by clicking on any of these recipes, and it'll bring up the recipe editor. And we'll go back and talk more about that in a minute. I can go into profiles and ingredients, and profiles are basically how we define our equipment and processes. So for example, if I go to the equipment profiles, it's got a whole bunch of preloaded ingredients, preloaded equipment, I should say here, that I can work with that defines the size of the equipment I'm working with, the volumes, the losses, how efficient my equipment is. And I do want to mention there's a whole bunch of preloaded equipment as well, so I can go in here. If you're using a commercial system, very likely there's a setup for it here. And you can just click on one of the check boxes here to load that particular set of equipment, and then press OK, and it'll be updated and it'll be available on the list. Anyways, I can edit all these things here. I can edit ingredients as well. So for example, I've got preloaded hops. You can create custom hops by adding a hop here. You can obviously manage the preloaded hops. There's only a few here, but if I want the cryo hops and hop ash, I can just click on a button and those will get updated and added to my list. There's also a large set of standalone tools. So these are basically small standalone calculators you can use while you're brewing. So there's an infusion calculator, one for doing refractometers, one for doing hydrometer temperature adjustment. Mead nutrients, if you're a mead builder, I didn't mention, but mead, wine, and cider is also supported by BeerSmith. There's a dilution tool. There's all kinds of great tools you can use here. And I do want to mention you can access any of these tools also in a separate window, or even your recipes in a separate window or tab in your browser just by control clicking on them. So I can control click on the hydrometer adjust, and it'll bring up the hydrometer adjust tool. Or I can go back up here to recipes and control click on any recipe, and it'll bring up that recipe in a new tab in my browser. Anyways, going back to the basic recipe builder here, there's also unit tools for doing unit conversions. So if I want to convert a temperature or a volume or something like that, I can do that from here. And finally, I did want to mention the unit settings down here. You can click on unit settings and you can change the entire system to work in metric, for example, just by clicking on the set to metric and then saving my unit settings here. So if you're a brewer outside of the United States, you prefer working in liters, for example, you can just go in here and set it to metric. Okay, now we're going to go back to the recipe editor. So let's go to recipes, and I'm going to open up this Great Lakes Porter that I have just as an example. And so here's the recipe editor. You do most of your work right here from the design tab, and I will mention I have a video on each of these tabs available, so you can access the tutorial videos very easily. But we generally work from the design tab, and you can create your own recipe from here from scratch. You can also take somebody else's recipe and scale it using the scale recipe button. There's a variety of tools here for adjusting your recipe. You can adjust the gravity, the bitterness, the color, pretty much anything you want. Up here at the top, You can edit ingredients just by clicking on them. So if I want to click on the pale malt here, I can adjust the amount. I can adjust how I use it. I can even go into the details and play with the various technical details for this particular malt if I wish. I can go into the little menu over here. There's menu buttons over here that allow me to duplicate ingredients, substitute ingredients, delete ingredients, and of course you can save them to your customized list. Going over here, I can add new ingredients. So for example, if I want to add new fermentables, I can just go here and I can type in the top. Let's say I'm trying to find a pale malt. And I can look at the pale malts that are available. I can get new malts just by clicking on the Manage Preloaded button here. And let's say I wanted to download malts from Castle Malts. I could just click on the button here for Castle Malts. And now those are going to show up on the list as well as the regular ones. And then, of course, to add something, I can just click on it and type in the amount. And it will add a new ingredient to my recipe. As I'm building the recipe, it's getting compared to a style guide down here. I have the entire BJCP style guide available. If you click on the style guide button, and you can search for styles like porters, for example. If I want an American porter, click on that. And then it's going to show me, as I'm building the recipe, what my estimated gravity is, bitterness is, color is, and it'll show me also compared to the style guide. So I can very easily get a visual representation of how I'm doing relative to the style guide. There's additional tools here for adjusting fermentable percentages. A lot of people prefer doing their grain bill by percentages, for example. You can do the same thing with hop IBUs. You can adjust those easily you can set the IBU contribution for each adjustment. And then down at the bottom, I have options for mash profiles, which basically defines how my mash proceeds, and everything from a simple single infusion mash to even a triple decoction mash if I want to do it. I can pick carbonation options. I can pick fermentation options. So there's a lot of flexibility here, and you can design and build the whole recipe right from this tab. Now, as you become a more advanced brewer, there's other tools available. There's a yeast starter tool here that allows me to find even two-stage yeast starters if I wish, and it'll actually track the number of yeast cells that I'm generating. There's water adjustment tools here. If you get into water profiles, I can start with a base profile here at the top, and I can build it up using salts, including tools for matching a profile. Let me match it to a particular individual style, for example, or match it to a particular city. I can do all that from here, and it'll calculate the water salts, and then it'll automatically add those water salts to my ingredient list. There's a mash tab for doing mash adjustments. You can also do pH adjustments down here for your mash pH, and there's a calculator and tools for doing acid adjustments to get your mash pH perfect if you're an advanced all-grain brewer. There's a session tab where you can record your session data from your actual, so it compares your estimates versus your actuals, and it calculates things like the calories and the efficiency, the ABV, and so on. You can track your fermentation readings on this tab as well. So easy to record your session as you go. There's notes available, volumes for tracking all the volumes in the system and the losses in the system. And of course, there's a brew day timer that allows you to, gives you step-by-step instructions, and also has a timer with an alarm built in. So you can run this, you can click on the run button and run it during your brew day, and it'll remind you when the next step is and tell you exactly what to do in that next step. And that's available both for the mash and also for the boil. So it calculates all your boil additions. You can, of course, print from here, and it's asking if I've got saved changes. I'm going to go ahead and save the changes. So I can print a recipe sheet that shows me the entire recipe with all the key features, or alternatively, I can print brew steps, which will show me step-by-step instructions on how to brew it from a process perspective. So, for example, it'll show me the water preparation up front, the mash ingredients next, how much water to add, the boil ingredients, and so on, all the way down here. So I could print this out, walk outside, and easily brew the recipe that I just created. So that's a quick overview. There are a lot of powerful tools available as well to do even more with BeerSmith Web. But a very flexible tool, and I should mention this is accessible from any web browser. You can just log into your account and use it from your tablet. You can use it from your phone even. Obviously, the phone layouts are a little bit narrower, but they have the same features available. And so you can access this from anywhere. And if you have a Gold Plus membership, you can also access the BeerSmith desktop program, which has been around for many years, and that has interfaces to the web-based version as well. For example, it has some new features that allow you to exchange items back and forth, like your equipment profiles and ingredients. And of course, you can access your web recipes via the cloud folder on the desktop program. So that's a quick overview of BeerSmith web, and there are also tutorials, I should mention, available for just about every feature I talked about here. And there's tutorials available for the desktop program as well. You can find those at BeerSmith.com. You can try a free trial of this software just by going to BeerSmith.com or BeerSmithRecipes.com and sign up for your 30-day free trial. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you have a great day.